You are standing at a crossroads, a place where the path ahead is obscured, and the weight of uncertainty presses upon your chest. The questions echo in your mind. What am I supposed to do? Where should I go? What is the purpose of my life? In the midst of this confusion, there is a truth that stands firm, unshaken by the tides of doubt. The Creator of the universe, the one who formed the mountains and the seas, who set the stars in their courses, has a plan for you. This plan is not a vague notion or a distant hope. It is a deliberate, intentional design crafted with care and purpose. But here's the challenge. This plan is not something you can grasp with your intellect alone. It is not something you can achieve through sheer willpower or human effort. It is revealed to those who seek it earnestly, who desire it above all else. The journey to understanding this plan begins with a heart surrendered. Not a half-hearted surrender, not a conditional surrender, but a complete and utter yielding to the will of the one who knows you better than you know yourself. This surrender is not a one-time event. It is a daily, moment-by-moment decision to trust, to obey, to follow. But surrender is not weakness. It is strength. It is the strength to let go of your own desires, your own ambitions, and to embrace the path that has been set before you, even when it leads through valleys of shadow and despair. It is the strength to say, "Not my will, but yours be done," even when the road ahead is unclear and the future uncertain. As you walk this path, you will encounter obstacles. There will be times when the way seems blocked, when doors appear closed, when the voices of doubt and fear rise up within you. In those moments, remember this: the one who called you is faithful. He will not lead you into confusion. He will not abandon you in your time of need. He will make the way clear in His time and in His way. Trust in His timing. Trust in His methods. Trust in His goodness. He sees the end from the beginning. He knows what you need before you ask, and He will provide, not according to your expectations, but according to His perfect will. But be warned, this journey is not for the faint of heart. It is not for those who seek comfort, who desire ease, who wish to avoid hardship. It is for those who are willing to take up their cross daily, who are ready to lose their lives in order to find them. It is for those who are willing to follow, even when the path leads to suffering, even when the cost is great. For in the end, it is not about the destination. It is about the one you are following. It is about knowing Him, loving Him, serving Him. It is about becoming more like Him, reflecting His character, His love, His holiness. So, if you find yourself at that crossroads, uncertain of which way to go, remember this: the one who called you is faithful. He will show you the way, but you must be willing to follow, to trust, to obey. And as you do, you will discover that the path He has set before you is the path of life, the path of peace, the path of joy. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. The one who called you is with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. He will guide you with His eye. He will lead you beside still waters. He will restore your soul. And in the end, you will look back and see that the path He led you on was the best path, the only path, the path that led to life and life abundant. You must fully surrender your own desires and control before you can discern the path meant for you. God's will is not shown to the self-reliant, but to the truly yielded. Understanding doesn't come before obedience. It comes through it. Trusting and obeying, even in uncertainty or hardship, leads to clarity and direction. God's will is not always comfortable or easy. Following it may cost you your comfort, reputation, or personal dreams, but it leads to eternal purpose and transformation. Even when the way is unclear, you are not abandoned. God's guidance is assured for those who continue to walk in faith and obedience. His timing and methods are always perfect. You want to know the will of God. You want direction. You want clarity. You want answers to the burning questions in your heart. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? What is the next step in my life? But I tell you the truth. There is a reason the heavens seem silent to you. There is a reason you feel as if you're wandering in a fog. It's not because he is not speaking. It's not because he is unwilling to lead. The problem is not on his side. It never has been. The problem is on ours. The problem is that we want revelation without surrender. We want answers without submission. We want the map without yielding the steering wheel. And it doesn't work that way. God does not reveal his will to those who are still negotiating the terms. He does not speak clearly to the one who stands on the edge of obedience, weighing whether the cost is worth it. He does not grant direction to those who only plan to follow if the path is smooth, if the road is easy, if the way aligns with their personal desires. No, he is not a consultant. He is not a life coach. He is not some benevolent advisor offering helpful suggestions for you to consider. He is Lord. He is Master. He is King. And until you bow before him in absolute surrender, you will remain blind to his purpose for your life. There is a pattern in Scripture. Over and over again we see it. First comes surrender, true, deep, painful surrender. Then comes revelation. Look at Abraham. God told him to leave his country, his people, and his father's house, to go to a land that God would show him. But Abraham didn't get the full picture up front. He didn't get a 5-step plan. He didn't even know where he was going. He simply obeyed. He surrendered, he trusted, and as he walked, God revealed. As he moved in obedience step by step, the plan unfolded. We want it the other way around. We say, show me where this leads, and then I'll decide whether I want to go. But that is not faith. That is not surrender. That is not the posture of one who has truly bowed before the throne. Faith says, even if I don't understand, even if I don't see the end, even if I have to walk through fire, I will follow. That is the man or woman to whom God reveals his will. There are many who want to serve God, but only in the way they have imagined. They have a picture in their minds of how their lives are supposed to look. They have dreams, ambitions, and goals that they've never laid down. They say, God, use me. But what they really mean is, use me in a way that fits my agenda. Use me in a way that doesn't disrupt my comfort. Use me as long as it looks impressive, as long as it gains the approval of others. But you cannot hold on to your own will and receive his. You cannot cling to your preferences and expect divine clarity. You must lay it all down. Surrender is not just about outward actions. It is a matter of the heart. You can be doing all the right things externally, attending services, serving in ministry, reading the scriptures, and still be holding back in your heart. You can be busy doing the Lord's work while still resisting his authority in your personal life. Surrender means that nothing is off limits, nothing is yours anymore. Your future, your relationships, your reputation, your money, your dreams, all of it is placed on the altar. The reason some never find God's will is because they've never truly let go. They've never come to that breaking point where they say, Lord, whatever you want, wherever you lead, however you choose, I am yours. And until that moment comes, you will keep wandering in circles. You will keep crying out for direction and wonder why heaven is silent. But when the heart is fully surrendered, when the resistance is gone, when the pride is broken, then the voice comes, not always loudly, not always immediately, but unmistakably. Do not misunderstand this. Surrender does not earn you God's attention. It is not a transaction. It is not a currency by which you purchase revelation. It is simply the proper posture of the soul before its Creator. It is the acknowledgement that He is God and you are not. It is the recognition that you were bought with a price and you no longer belong to yourself. The surrendered life is not a special category for elite Christians. It is the baseline of genuine discipleship. And surrender is not a moment, it is a lifestyle. It is a daily decision to die to yourself. It is the willingness to let go again and again and again. Each day there will be things to release. Each day there will be battles between the flesh and the spirit. Each day your will must be laid down so that His may be done. And the more you walk in this kind of surrender, the clearer His leading becomes. Some of you are waiting for God to give you a mission, but you have not yet obeyed the last thing He told you. Why would He show you step 3 when you've ignored step 1? Why would He entrust you with greater responsibility when you haven't been faithful with the little things? Obedience in the mundane prepares you for obedience in the extraordinary. Faithfulness in the hidden things precedes usefulness in the public ones. If you are not surrendered in the quiet place, do not expect a booming voice in the storm. There is a lie in the modern age that says you can have Jesus and keep your life, that you can follow Him and still chase your dreams, that you can add Him to your schedule without letting Him redefine everything. But the gospel calls for death, death to self, death to pride, death to your plans. And only when you have died can you truly live. Only when the seed falls to the ground and dies does it bear fruit. There is no shortcut. There is no easy path. The cross always comes before the crown. There are many who envy those who walk in purpose, who walk in clarity, who walk in the fullness of their calling. They think, God speaks to them, but not to me. But if you look deeper, you will often find that these are people who have walked through fire. These are people who have surrendered much. These are people who have said, Yes, Lord, before the question was even asked. They are not perfect. They are not special. They are simply surrendered, and that is all God is looking for. He does not need your talent. He does not need your charisma. He does not need your resume or your network. He can do more with a weak, trembling soul that is fully surrendered than with the most gifted person who is still holding on. The power is not in the vessel, it is in the one who fills it. But the vessel must be empty before it can be filled. It must be clean. It must be yielded. So many are asking, what is God's will for my life? But the better question is, am I willing to do whatever He asks? Until that answer is yes, the question of direction is premature. You do not need a new word from God. You need to obey what He has already said. You need to come back to the altar, to lay down your idols, to renounce your independence, and to say, have your way in me. He reveals Himself to the hungry. He guides the broken. He speaks to the humble. But the proud, the self-sufficient, the double-minded, they remain in darkness. It is not that He hides Himself out of cruelty. It is that His voice is only heard by those who are truly listening. And the surrendered soul listens not to debate, not to consider, but to obey. What would happen if you stopped demanding answers and started offering yourself? What would change if you stopped praying for clarity and started praying for courage to obey? What would your life look like if you said, Lord, I trust you even when I don't understand you? That is the place where the will of God becomes clear, not in the mind that insists on understanding everything, but in the heart that is willing to follow no matter what. Do not wait for everything to make sense. Do not wait until the cost seems manageable. Step out, lay it down, die to self, say yes, and as you do, you will begin to see, not all at once, not with fireworks and lightning bolts, but step by step, moment by moment, a quiet voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it, and you will know, not because you figured it out, but because you surrendered, because you stopped demanding and started yielding, because you let go of your will and He gave you His. You say you want to know the will of God, you long for direction. You cry out in your prayers, Lord, what do you want from me? And yet the answer seems far off. The way remains unclear. You wait for some divine whisper, some flash of insight that will set everything in order. But I tell you this with solemn conviction. God's will is not a secret for you to uncover with enough effort or cleverness. God's will is not some mysterious code that needs to be cracked by spiritual experts. God's will is not revealed to the curious, it is revealed to the faithful. It is unfolded through obedience that is patient, consistent, and rooted in trust. Faithful obedience, not occasional obedience, not conditional obedience, but steady, unwavering obedience to what has already been commanded. This is the path on which His will becomes known. You do not need to know everything in order to take the first step. You do not need the entire plan to begin moving forward. In fact, the fullness of God's will is only ever revealed as you walk in what has already been shown. There are many today who say they are waiting on God, but in truth, they are delaying obedience. They use the language of discernment to cover their unwillingness to act. They claim to be seeking clarity, but in reality, they are resisting the plain truth that has already been given. The Scriptures are not silent. God has spoken, and until you begin to live out what He has clearly revealed, you have no right to demand more revelation. Why would a holy God continue to speak to a heart that ignores His voice? Look to the Scriptures and see the pattern. Obedience first, understanding later. When Noah was told to build an ark, there was no visible threat. The skies were clear, the earth was dry, there had never been a flood, but he obeyed. He gathered wood, he measured and cut. He endured the ridicule of his generation. And it was through that obedience that the will of God was unfolded, not just for his own family, but for all of human history. Consider Joshua. Before he ever saw the walls of Jericho crumble, he had to obey. He had to march in silence. He had to trust in what seemed absurd. The strategy made no sense from a military perspective, but God's ways are not our ways, and through obedience, the power of God was revealed. Through obedience, the impossible became reality. Through obedience, God's purposes were accomplished. There are those who want the walls to fall before they take a step. They want the seas to part before they leave Egypt. They want the fire to come before they build the altar, but God does not work that way. He leads His people step by step, command by command. He does not owe you an explanation. He gives you a call, and He waits to see if you will respond. We must understand this. Obedience is not a means to control God. It is not a way to manipulate Him into giving us what we want. Obedience is the natural response of a heart that has been transformed. It is not a strategy. It is a sign of surrender. It is the fruit of true faith. And faith is never passive. Faith moves. Faith obeys. Faith lays everything down at His feet and says, even if I don't see, even if I don't understand, I will follow. You say you want to know God's will for your life. Are you obeying what you already know? Are you walking in holiness? Are you loving your neighbor? Are you forgiving your enemies? Are you serving the least of these? Are you being faithful in prayer, in purity, in humility? So many want to know the great and mighty plans of God, but they overlook the daily commands He has already spoken. The grand will of God is never separated from the simple commands of God. The road to your calling is paved with the bricks of everyday obedience. God does not bypass the small things. He watches how you respond to them. He watches how you live when no one is looking. He watches how you treat people who cannot reward you. He watches whether your yes means yes and your no means no. He watches how you handle what belongs to another man, and based on these things that seem small to us, He begins to unfold His greater plans. The will of God is not a path you discover through emotion. It is not found through feelings or spiritual highs. It is found as you walk in what is true. The foundation of obedience is not feeling like obeying. It is believing that God is who He says He is, that his word is sure, and that his commands are good. You obey not because you always want to, but because he is worthy. You obey not because the road is easy, but because he is trustworthy. So many look for a sign in the sky, but they neglect the word in their hands. They cry out for revelation, but they close the book that reveals God's heart. The will of God is written. It is living and active. If you will not obey the Scriptures, then no vision, no dream, no prophetic word will change your course. All revelation is tested against the Word, and the Word is the lamp unto our feet. The unfolding of God's will often comes through trial. It comes through pain. It comes through loss. And in those moments, obedience is tested. Will you still follow when it costs you everything? Will you still say yes when the way is hard? That is where the will of God is forged in your soul, not in the comfort of ease, but in the furnace of affliction. Obedience in suffering is not wasted. It is the soil in which purpose takes root. When Joseph was betrayed, when he was thrown into a pit, when he was sold into slavery, when he was falsely accused and imprisoned, he continued to obey. He continued to honor God, and only after years of faithful obedience did the full picture come into view. But it had been unfolding all along, not in a sudden burst of clarity, but in the steady rhythm of trust. This is how God works. He molds your character before he reveals your calling. He prepares your heart before he positions your feet. And obedience is the refining fire that purifies your motives, that teaches you to wait, that breaks your pride. Without obedience, even the clearest revelation would be squandered. Without obedience, even the most detailed plan would be misused. God is not slow to lead. We are slow to follow. We want instant answers. We want the whole blueprint, but God says, trust me, walk with me, obey me, and as you do, the path becomes clear. The light is not given all at once. It is given one step at a time. You take a step, and the next one is revealed. You walk in obedience today, and his will unfolds tomorrow. This is why obedience is the mark of true discipleship. Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. A love is not proven by passion alone. It is proven by obedience, and the one who obeys, not perfectly, but sincerely, is the one to whom more is given. The one who hears and does is the one who is entrusted with deeper things. But the one who hears and does not obey, even what he has will be taken from him. There are no shortcuts to knowing the will of God. There is only the long, narrow road of obedience, and that road is walked in secret. It is walked when no one applauds. It is walked when the heavens are silent. It is walked when your strength is failing, but in that place you learn to know his voice. In that place you learn to trust his heart, and in that place you begin to see the beauty of his will unfolding. Piece by piece, layer by layer, as your life becomes a living testimony of his faithfulness. You cannot fake obedience. You cannot substitute it with good intentions. The one who obeys is the one who fears the Lord, who takes his word seriously, who humbles himself under God's hand. That man or woman will be led. That man or woman will not walk in darkness, because the Lord delights in guiding those who obey him. He is near to the humble. He teaches the meek. He confides in those who fear him. If you want to know his will, then walk in the light you already have. Do not wait for the full picture. Start with the last command he gave you. Was it to forgive someone? Was it to confess a hidden sin? Was it to serve in a place you've despised? Was it to give something up? Go back to that moment. Go back to the place of disobedience and repent. Begin there, obey there, and you will find that the silence breaks. The way begins to open. The hand of God moves again, not because you forced his hand, but because you yielded yours. Faithful obedience is not glamorous. It will not always get you noticed. It will not always result in visible success, but in the economy of heaven it is priceless, it is rewarded, it is honored. And it is through that obedience that the will of God is revealed, not in the ways we expect, but in ways far greater than we could ever imagine. We have been sold a lie that tells us the will of God is always comfortable, always prosperous, always lined with ease and success. We are told that if we are in the center of His will, then things will go smoothly, doors will fly open, and everyone will applaud. But that is not the testimony of Scripture. That is not the reality of the faithful. That is not the experience of the men and women who walked closest with God. No, the path of His will is stained with blood, sweat, and tears. The will of God is a narrow road, a rugged road, and many turn away because they were never told the truth. It will cost you everything. We want the glory without the cross. We want the crown without the thorns. We want resurrection power, but we do not want to die. We want to be used by God, but we recoil when He begins to strip us of the very things that hinder His work in us. And so we stand at the threshold of obedience, unwilling to pay the price, and we wonder why His will remains a mystery to us. From the very beginning, the calling of God has always required sacrifice. Ask Abraham if the path was easy. Ask him what it felt like to lay his son on the altar, to raise the knife over the promise God had given him. Ask Moses what it cost to leave the palace of Egypt and identify with a people who were oppressed, broken, and lost. Ask David if the anointing came with a crown or with years of running, hiding in caves, being betrayed by the very people he served. The will of God will cost you your comfort. It will cost you your safety. It will cost you your reputation. It will stretch you to the end of yourself, because the goal is not just to use you. It is to transform you, and transformation does not come through ease. It comes through fire. Look at Jesus. He was perfect, sinless, the beloved Son, and yet the will of His Father led Him not to comfort but to the cross, not to applause but to rejection, not to a throne of gold but to a tree of suffering. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. If this was the path for the Son, do you really believe your path will be different? The servant is not greater than the master. If they hated Him, they will hate you. If He suffered, you will suffer. If He was broken, you too will be broken. This is the cost of walking in the will of God. There is no such thing as painless obedience. You may try to find it. You may try to negotiate with God, offering Him a version of submission that avoids the cross, but that is not obedience. That is rebellion dressed in religious language. True obedience will tear something from your hands. It will sever your pride. It will put your flesh to death, because the will of God is not a gentle addition to your already comfortable life. It is a consuming fire that demands everything. So many want to be used by God in mighty ways, but they do not want to be refined. They want ministry without humility. They want power without brokenness. But God does not anoint the unbroken. He does not entrust His glory to those who are still seeking their own. And so He takes us through hardship, not because He is cruel, but because He loves us too much to leave us as we are. The hardship is not proof of His absence. It is evidence of His hand at work. Ask Joseph. Thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold as a slave, falsely accused, forgotten in prison. That is the path God chose to use to prepare him. The dreams were real, but so was the suffering, and through it all, Joseph remained faithful. He could not see the end, he did not understand the full plan, but he obeyed, and through that hardship, God forged in him the character necessary to fulfill the promise. The hardship did not cancel the will of God, it fulfilled it. We do not grow in the sunshine, we grow in the storm. We are not made strong through applause. We are made strong through trial. It is in the dark places, the lonely nights, the moments of despair, when God is doing his deepest work in us. We want deliverance, he wants dependence, we want relief, he wants refinement, and so he takes us down a path that breaks us, shapes us, purifies us, until we no longer live for our own will, but for his. You may be walking through hardship right now, and you wonder if you have stepped outside his will. You feel the pressure, the pain, the resistance, and you assume you've made a mistake. But what if this is exactly where he wants you? What if the storm is not a punishment, but a process? What if the hardship is not a detour, but the very road he has chosen to draw you closer, to empty you of self, and to reveal his power in your weakness? The apostles walked in the perfect will of God, and yet they were beaten, imprisoned, stoned, and left for dead. They were hated by the world, rejected by their own people, betrayed by friends, and yet they rejoiced that they were counted worthy to suffer for the name. That is the mark of someone who has been transformed. They no longer avoid suffering, they embrace it, not because they enjoy pain, but because they know what it produces. We live in a culture that flees discomfort. We avoid pain at all costs, but the kingdom of God is built on sacrifice. The heroes of the faith were not men of ease. They were men who bled. They were men who were crushed, beaten, martyred. The world was not worthy of them. And yet they were exactly where God wanted them to be. Do not measure the will of God by your comfort. Do not assume that open doors always mean his approval, or that closed doors mean his rejection. Sometimes the hardest road is the holiest one. Sometimes the most painful choice is the most obedient one. The path of God's will is marked not by ease, but by obedience, and obedience will hurt. But it is in the hurt that he draws near. It is in the pain that his presence becomes real. It is in the loss that his love becomes tangible. He does not promise you an easy road, but he promises to be with you on it. He does not promise that you won't suffer, but he promises that your suffering will not be wasted. Every tear, every trial, every moment of weakness, he sees it all, and he uses it all. Nothing in the will of God is accidental. Nothing is random. The hardship has purpose. The sacrifice has meaning. And the deeper the sacrifice, the greater the glory that will follow. But you must decide, do you want the will of God, or do you want a convenient life? Do you want the call, or do you want comfort? You cannot have both. There will come a point when the path splits, and you must choose. And if you choose his will, you must also choose the cross. You will lose things, you will lose people, you will be misunderstood, you will be mocked. And yet there is joy on this road. There is peace that cannot be explained. There is a nearness to God that cannot be found in any other way. Those who suffer with him also reign with him. Those who die with him also rise with him. And in the end, every sacrifice will seem small compared to the glory revealed. This is not a message for the crowd. It is not for those who want entertainment. It is not for those who want to be admired. This is a message for those who are desperate to be used by God, no matter the cost, for those who have seen his worth and decided that no price is too high, for those who have said, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. If you find yourself on the path of hardship, do not despise it. Do not retreat. Do not look for a way out. Look for him. He is there in the fire, in the storm, in the breaking. He is not punishing you. He is purifying you. He is not ignoring you. He is inviting you into deeper intimacy, deeper trust, deeper surrender. And as you walk this path, as you bleed, as you weep, as you sacrifice, you will begin to know him, not just as the God who calls, but as the God who walks with you, who holds you up, who never lets go. And you will find that the hardship, though painful, was the place where his will became most clear, not because it was easy, but because it made you more like him. You wait, you seek, you cry out in the quiet of the night. You've done what you know to do, you've prayed, you've fasted, you've asked and knocked and waited, and yet the answer does not come. The direction you long for remains hidden, the door you hoped would open remains closed, and your heart, worn and tired, begins to whisper the question you dare not say out loud. Has God forgotten me? But I tell you this, God has not forgotten. God does not overlook his children. He is not like man, who promises and fails to deliver. He is not like the world, which changes with the wind. He is faithful, unshakably, undeniably faithful. He leads, he guides, he reveals, but he does it in his time, not yours. And therein lies the tension. We live in a world of instant gratification, where everything is available in a moment, but God works by a different clock. His timing is not slow, it is perfect, it is not delayed, it is deliberate, and if you do not learn to wait, you will miss the beauty of what he is doing. There is something God accomplishes in the waiting that cannot be done in the arriving. We think the goal is to get there, to see the vision fulfilled, to walk in the calling, but God is just as interested, no, more interested, in who you are becoming while you wait. Because if you arrive unprepared, unshaped, unchanged, the very thing you were waiting for could destroy you. His timing is a mercy. His delay is not denial. It is a design to form something in you that is essential to the journey ahead. Look at the ones he has used mightily. None of them were rushed into greatness. Joseph had dreams as a young man, but he did not walk in authority until he had been betrayed, sold, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Why? Because there were things that had to be burned out of him: pride, immaturity, presumption. Those cannot remain if you are to carry God's purpose, and so God, in his mercy, waits. He waits while you are in the pit. He waits while you are forgotten, and all the while he is working, not only on the circumstances, but on your soul. David was anointed king, and yet he returned to the sheep. He fought giants, served Saul, played the harp, and hid in caves before he ever wore the crown. Why the delay? Why the hardship? Because he was being shaped. God was testing him, training him, teaching him what it means to depend not on the throne, not on the people, not on the outcome, but on God alone. There is a lesson here for you. If God has not yet revealed the next step, it is not because he is confused. It is not because he is indifferent. It is because there is something in the waiting that must be completed. And you must learn to trust his silence. His silence is not absence. His silence is not neglect. It is preparation. It is protection. It is part of the process. God is never late. He is never early. He is always right on time. But his time is not your time, and your impatience does not move him. Your anxiety does not change his schedule. What moves him is faith. What pleases him is trust. And trust is proven not when you understand, but when you obey without clarity, when you wait without complaining, when you worship without seeing the outcome. The problem is not that God does not speak. The problem is that we do not always like the way he speaks, or when. We want dreams, visions, open doors. He gives us stillness, conviction, and quiet persistence. We want fireworks. He gives us a whisper. And in that whisper, he tests us. Will we believe him when we don't feel him? Will we follow him when the path is hidden? Will we stay close when nothing makes sense? He is not obligated to explain himself. He is not required to make you understand. He is God. And if you truly believe that, then you will trust that his ways are higher, his thoughts are better, and his timing is best. The very things you think are delays are often divine appointments in disguise. The very seasons you try to escape are often the very seasons he uses to reveal himself most deeply. Sometimes he leads by saying, "Go." Sometimes he leads by saying, "Stay." Sometimes he leads by saying nothing at all. And in that silence he watches. He watches what you do with what he already said. Did you obey the last word, Are you walking in the light He already gave you, or are you waiting for new instructions while ignoring the old ones? We are quick to forget that walking with God is not a sprint. It is a lifelong journey, a journey filled with seasons of movement and seasons of stillness. Abraham waited decades. Moses waited in the desert for 40 years. Paul spent years in obscurity before stepping into public ministry. Jesus himself waited 30 years before beginning his earthly ministry. Are you greater than them? Are you more worthy of immediate revelation? No, you are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are being refined. And if you rush the process, you will step outside of God's timing and reap the consequences. Many have done it. Many have run ahead. Many have forced open doors God had closed, and they paid dearly for it. There is a peace in waiting on God, not in passivity, but in active trust, in continuing to pray, continuing to serve, continuing to obey, even when you cannot see. He is not idle. He is aligning. He is orchestrating. He is preparing things you cannot see, conversations you do not hear, opportunities you would never think to pursue. He is weaving it all together. And one day, at the right time, He will make it plain, not 1 second too early, not 1 second too late, but you must be faithful with today, faithful with the little, faithful in the unseen. This is how He leads. This is how He reveals, step by step, as you walk with Him. Not before you start walking, but as you move in obedience. You want the whole plan. He gives you just enough to trust Him. And in trusting Him, you learn what it really means to follow. Do not compare your journey with someone else's. Do not look at their timing and wonder why yours is different. God deals with each of His children uniquely. What He gives them may not be what He gives you. What He withholds from them may be different than what He withholds from you. But in all of it, He is faithful, faithful to lead, faithful to guide, faithful to complete what He started. You may not see the outcome yet. You may feel forgotten, but do not judge the story before it's finished. Do not pronounce the end in the middle of the chapter. What He promised, He will perform. What He began, He will complete. You don't need to know when. You need to know Him. You don't need the details. You need the discipline of trust. There will come a day when you look back and see it. You will see the hand of God in every delay. You will see His fingerprints in every detour. You will realize that the silence was not a curse, but a gift, that the waiting was not a punishment, but a tool of love, and you will thank Him for not answering you when you demanded it, because what He gave you instead was far better than anything you could have planned. So don't stop praying, don't stop believing, don't stop seeking, but do it from a place of rest, not striving. He is not distant. He is near to the brokenhearted. He is near to the waiting soul. He is near to those who walk by faith and not by sight. One day it will make sense. One day the light will break through. One day the door will open. One day the answer will come. But until then, trust Him. Trust Him not just to give you direction, but to lead you in the waiting. Because He is not only faithful to speak, He is faithful to lead, and He is leading, even now, even here, even in the silence.